56.51 is another famous sutta. Then the Blessed One took up a little bit of soil in his fingernail and addressed the monks. Buddha took the soil on his fingernail like that, at the tip of his fingernail, just holding up a bit like that. Monks, what do you think which is more, the little bit of soil that I have taken up in my fingernail or this great earth? And they said, Venerable Sir, that great earth is more. The little bit of soil that the Blessed One has taken up in his fingernail is trifling. Compared to the great earth, that little bit of soil is not calculable, does not bear comparison, does not amount even to a fraction. And the Buddha said, so too monks, for a noble disciple, a person accomplished in view, that means with right view, who has made the breakthrough, the suffering that has been destroyed and eliminated is more, while that which remains is trifling. Compared to the former mass of suffering that has been destroyed and eliminated, the latter is not calculable, does not bear comparison, does not amount even to a fraction, as there is a maximum of 7 more lives. He is one who understands as it really is. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Therefore, monks, an exertion should be made to understand. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is cessation of suffering. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So this sutta is telling us that if we attain right view, we have made the breakthrough. And once you attain right view, the suffering that you have left in existence is so little compared to the former suffering that you put behind you. Or you can say the suffering that you have left after attaining right view is so little compared to your friend who has not attained right view. The guy who has not attained right view, he will turn in samsara for countless lifetimes some more. So the Buddha says also once you have right view, there is a maximum of 7 more lifetimes for you. Here is very clear, maximum of 7 more lifetimes. You will only be reborn 7 more lifetimes, maximum. That is, even if you don't make any effort, 7 more. If you make some effort, you'll be shorter still. But once you have become Arya with right view, as I mentioned, you can take a slow boat out of samsara because you'll have a good life. You'll either be reborn in heaven or as a human being. And each time you come back as a human or a heavenly being, you have these 4 things the other day. Ayuvano Sukhang Balang, long life, beauty, happiness, and power or strength. So, therefore, the Buddha always says we should exert ourselves to understand the 4 noble truths. And basically, to understand the 4 noble truths is to study suttas like this in the Samyutta Nikaya. In fact, out of all the 5 Nikayas, to me, this is the most important Nikaya. All the important teachings are inside here. Is there any more sutta? I think that's the end of the suttas that I want to read in this last chapter. So we have come to the end of the Samyutta Nikaya. It took us about 2 months. I think it was very good. All the important suttas in this Samyutta Nikaya, I believe we have gone through. Those that we did not go through are not so important. Sometimes they were repetitions, so the meaning was not so important. So I'll just recap the 5 books that we went through in the Samyutta Nikaya. We look at page 7 in the beginning, the general contents. The first book is the Sagatha Vaga. Sagatha means Sa is with, Gatha is verses. So it is suttas accompanied by verses. So the first book, you find all the suttas. At the end of the suttas, you had verses. And this first book, there were 11 chapters. And out of these 11 chapters, the important ones would be like Kosala Sangyutta concerning the Pasanadi king. Some good Dharma was there. And then the Brahma Sangyutta, this concerning the Brahma Devas. We found that some of the Brahma Devas had an affinity with the Buddha from the past life. The Buddha went to them mostly because some of them were his former teachers, and out of gratitude he went to teach them. Then the Brahmana Sutta was quite interesting. Those Brahmins who argued with the Buddha, and when they were converted by the Buddha, some of them so quickly renounced and became monks. And then Sacca Sangyutta also was quite interesting. Sacca Devaraja was an interesting Deva with a lot of good qualities. Then the second book, Nidana Vaga. Nidana means causation, that means dependent origination. This is a very important topic. We went through this 12th chapter, we went through in quite detail. Let me see. I remember it took many days to go through it. 1, 2, 3, 6 days, we spent 6 nights on this Nidana Sangyutta, one of the longest times we spent. So this Nidana Sangyutta was very important. And then inside the second book, the Labha Sakara Sangyutta was also very important for monks, on the dangers of gains and honors, fame, offerings and fame, how it can corrupt a monk. And then the Upama Sangyutta, number 20, that was very important. Some very good similes were given in this chapter. And the third book was the Kanda Vaga we went through. Kanda is the aggregates. So this is the chapter on the 5 aggregates of attachment. This is also an extremely important topic because if you want to understand non-self, it's very important to understand the 5 aggregates as not self or non-self. And this chapter 22, we also spent quite a number of days. We also spent about 6 days, 6 nights discussing this chapter 22, Kanda Sangyutta. And then the other chapters in this book are not so important. This is the outstanding chapter in this third book. I remember we mentioned that it took a huge part of the book. And the fourth book we went through was Salayatana Vaga. Salayatana means the 6 sense bases. This is another very important topic. In fact, these 3 are the main topics that we should understand if we want to see not self, no self. That is the dependent origination, the 5 aggregates, and the 6 sense bases. So this chapter 35, we spent also many days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We spent 7 days. We spent 7 days discussing this Salayatana Sangyutta. And then the Vedana Sangyutta also, feelings also quite important. And then Chitta Sangyutta was interesting. Chapter 41 was interesting. And then chapter 42 also had a number of very good suttas on the headman, Penghulu, village headman. And then we came to the last book, Mahavaga, the great book because it's probably the biggest book. And some of the chapters here were quite important. Marga, the path, Noble Eightfold Path, the first chapter. And Bojanga was quite important. In fact, we spent quite a number of days on Bojanga. We spent, we spent 5 days. We spent 5 days, on this Bojanga Sangyutta, factors of enlightenment. That's a very important topic. The other important topic in this book, this last book, was the Satipatthana. Satipatthana, we spent 3 days on the Satipatthana. And then this Satipatthana, the suttas here, if you study the suttas in this Satipatthana Sangyutta, you will understand Satipatthana much better than if you study the Satipatthana Sutta itself. Satipatthana Sutta just tells you the objects of meditation, but the meaning of Satipatthana, how to practice Satipatthana is all found in this Satipatthana Samyutta. And the Indriya Samyutta was another important chapter. And then the Anapanasati Samyutta 54 and Sotapatti Samyutta on stream entry. All these were important. So I hope later you will, after our two ladies here are doing a lot of good work editing our talks, so later we will make into MP3s, maybe probably two MP3s, and then we'll make it for free distribution, so you can get a copy and then you slowly listen to them again and again. You have to listen many times, and then slowly all the pieces fall into place, because all these suttas are connected. They're connected. So you have to see it from different suttas, explain it from different angles. And if you can listen to the Dhamma talk together with your book, you refer to your book. Anytime you can pause and look at the book. You'll understand better. If there's anything later, if you want to clarify, you can always contact me again. So we stop here for tonight, and then we can have some discussion.
When we see the Dhamma, or at least gain some Dhamma knowledge, we tend to let go more, and we tend to be more, we should be able to accept the differences of others' behavior from ours more. But on the other hand, for example, we have Vihara, though we have this tolerance of other people, but some people behaving not in a beneficial way to the Vihara. We still, how do we handle a situation where while we are tolerant of the person, but on the other hand, he's not behaving beneficially to the whole community. So how do we exercise wisdom?
We look into the suttas and the Vinaya, we find that the Buddha was very tolerant. And sometimes when certain monks, there were a few monks that what we call in Chinese white tan, rotten eggs, and yet the Buddha was quite tolerant of them, and sometimes they step out of line, the Buddha will make a new precept, and they step out of line again, the Buddha makes another new precept, and also we find that in other suttas and also in the Vinaya, sometimes the Buddha says that when a person misbehaves, if we cannot teach him, sometimes we have compassion on him, hope that he will change himself. So if people listen to the Dhamma, it has some effect. For some people, the effect to change is faster. For some people, it's slower. But usually, the Dhamma has some effect, very good effect on us. So, when we live together, sometimes we have to learn to be tolerant. And sometimes we don't look at other people's faults so much. The spiritual path, we learn to look at our faults. And we only do something when the behavior is out of line so much that it adversely affects others. It hinders other people's practice. Then we cannot tolerate. If it is their personal defects, personal shortcomings, we try to ignore, because every person we have good points and bad points, and especially like in a monastery like this, In fact, for most monasteries are short of people. You can ask Bing Chao. Bing Chao has been around a few centers. He says they are always short of people. So, because of that, we should be more tolerant. In the Buddha's Vinaya, there is no fixed number of times. There's no fixed number of times, and it's only up to the preceptor whether the preceptor wants to accept him or not. If he can find a preceptor who's willing to accept him, then it's okay. But like in Mahayana teachings, they have a limit, seven times or something like that. And that is from the external sect. In India, because we've seen in our Vinaya books, the Buddha mentioned that in the external sects, they have this figure of 7. For example, external sect ascetics, when they go on alms round, they go 7 houses. They're not supposed to go more than 7 houses. But this is not the Buddhist practice. The Buddha allowed monks to go as many times as they wanted, as they needed. Takes what? Takes...
you treat his preceptor as his parent because he goes forth, so he is behind his lay parents. So he takes greater respect to the preceptor, and I find that in Thai they treat the preceptor like their father. They don't wash the feet, touch the teacher. They really treat the preceptor as a father.
Yes, according to the Vinaya, in the Vinaya books, we have a list of duties of the student towards his teacher, either his teacher or his preceptor. And that list of duties is very, very complete. From the beginning of the day, when the preceptor or the acharya, the teacher, wakes up, the disciple is supposed to get the toothbrush for him, provide the water for him, and then if he wants to take a bath, to prepare the bathroom, if he wants hot water, to prepare hot water, and if he wants a drink, to prepare a drink, and if he wants to wear the robe, go and get the robe for him, and all this. And then when he goes or if he wants to go out for alms round, the disciple has to get his robe for him and then carry his bowl for him together with his own bowl. Then when they have reached the town, then the disciple gives the bowl to the teacher. Then after alms round, the disciple will carry his own bowl and the teacher's bowl again. And then he's supposed to rush back to the monastery and then put down the bowl and get the water ready to wash the feet for the teacher when the teacher comes back. And then when the teacher comes back, to take off his robe and go and dry it on the string and do everything to serve the teacher. That is the tradition. Only thing is, some monks they take the trouble to teach their disciple all this. But some monks are so busy that they don't have time to teach so many things. But sometimes if the disciple, he takes the trouble to study the Vinaya books or the suttas, he should know. But at least, even if it is not so detailed in serving the teacher, he should have the respect. Because in the Vinaya books, it is stated that if the disciple does not have enough love and respect for the teacher, he should be asked to leave. If he does not carry the bowl, of the teacher. When he goes on alms round also he's supposed to leave. All these things. So the Buddha was very strict about all these things. In a way it's good because nowadays a lot of monks they do not have enough respect for the teacher. They think I wear the robe, I'm also a monk, you also a monk, I am a member of the Sangha, I have equal rights. Some people are like that. So sometimes a teacher cannot do much, just has to look at his the disciple and see the attitude. Attitude is very important. Some people, the attitude is no good, and you try to teach them, they won't learn. Then, as I mentioned before, any monk wearing the robe, he should realize karma vipaka, how you treat your teacher and senior monks. Next time, in a few years' time, this karma vipaka will come back to you. You get the same treatment.
So we have this kind of don't the teachers to respect teachers and parents, so the people like people in the past or the tradition they didn't go they look after the people like the parents would be. So I find that these are traditions. Monks or those aspiring to be monks, we should know this even before they ordain.
But then, this is the modern world, so you cannot expect too much in the olden days. Also, it depends on the culture, you see. Like in Thailand, children have been brought up from very young to bow to their parents, to bow to their teachers, to bow to monks. Like last time when I lived in Thailand, we go to the village on alms round, And then these villagers, they see us coming from the distance, they quickly tell the children, Prak ma liao, to tell the children, the Prak is monk ma liao, lei jo then ask them to come, and why Prak, pay respect And these children are very small, very small children, they encouraged to go and tak bat to offer food So that's why I keep my bowl strap. You notice my bowl strap is very long because you have to bend down to the small girl offer you food. They have to bend very low, so you have a long strap, easier to bend. So it's the tradition. Years ago in China, we had that kind of tradition. Now we come to Malaysia after so many years. We become westernized already. The Western attitude, ego is very strong. Individual first. So it's times have changed, so we have to recognize that. You cannot expect what happened 2,500 years ago to practice it now. It's very difficult.
First of all, thanks very much, Mate, for this very big decision of the sutras. I hope that our audience will have been much earlier from the very beginning. I think if you give us some advice as a lay person ourselves, how to read the sutra and practice, what is the best way to be different between the reading the sutras and practice? Perhaps could you share with us some of the experience when you first started off on the idea of the sutras and the practice? I think that would be very helpful to us. Thank you.
Reading the original discourses of the Buddha is the first step, and you should try to spend much time studying the suttas again and again. You finish the book, you read it again. Finish the book, you read it again. And as you study the suttas, as you understand the Buddha's teachings, you will slowly put them into practice. You will only practice what you understand. So it's difficult to tell you, you practice this, you practice that. But basically, initially, the precepts are important. Not initially, all the time, precepts are important. So the foundation is always the precepts and right view. Right view means understanding of the original discourses of the Buddha. And then when you have time, you meditate. And I always encourage people to meditate early in the morning. The first thing you do when you get up. If you have more time when you get up, you do some reading of the suttas, because when we get up in the morning, we are a bit groggy, a bit sleepy. So when you read the suttas, you're more awake. Then after that, you meditate a bit. So like for people like you, retired, you have more time. So you should spend as much time as you can studying the suttas and meditating. These are the two cornerstones of the spiritual path. Studying the original suttas and meditating as much as you can. And then in between that, you have to do your worldly duties. Then even when you do your worldly duties, then if you understand the Dhamma, then you always keep the Dhamma in mind, you see. Whatever you do, you're guided by the Dhamma. And you always think of the Dhamma. So the Buddha says, if you constantly think of the Dhamma, you have lofty thoughts, high thoughts. You don't think of base things. So that would bring you to a good rebirth. The most important thing, now that we have come to the original teachings of the Buddha, is to make as much effort to study the suttas or listen to the teachings that have been recorded, so that you get the right view. Once you get right view, you have got the most valuable thing in life that you can get. There's nothing more valuable in life you can get than right view. Then the suttas, the Buddha said, even if somebody were to make a bargain with you, that you be stabbed 300 times every day for 100 years, it's worth to take up that offer, special offer. So then the Buddha says, but then to get right view, you don't have to suffer so much actually. You just need the sincerity. In this spiritual path, the sincerity, that earnestness is very important. If you are sincere, then you will make the effort. If you are not sincere, half-hearted efforts not worthwhile, doesn't work out. So if you are sincere on the spiritual path, you will make enough effort to reap the benefit. Yeah, tomorrow I can start on the Majjhima Nikaya, but only be about a week. And Su Ling has suggested that most of you be interviewed and give your comments, because we are going to make this into this video, part of the video. So you can think what you want to say, and then after that you can Brother Sampano can record. Any other thing?
Something is not aware that human knowledge is very precious and it's very difficult to get human to be born as human. We read in the Sutta also that when Deva's lifetime is up, some other Devas admonish Deva to take human birth, so that they should be born again in the Deva world and future. So one thing I like to know, whether a Deva can bring themselves to be born as a human?
I think the Devas are having psychic power. There are certain things that they know. So they probably know that their karma is good enough after enjoying their Deva or Devi lifespan, that they will be reborn in the human realm. And it appears like some of them can even choose the rebirth, where they want to be reborn, into which family. But I guess not for all of them. Those with very good karma. But some devas, like it was mentioned in one of the suttas, like this, what's his name, Sambara or something, he used to play around with his mantra, I think. And after he died, he was reborn in hell. So that's why, that's one sutta, if you remember, Sacca Raja wanted to learn that mantra. And then Vipachiti told him to wait and he'll consult the other asuras. And after a few days, he told Sacca Raja, I said, I think you better don't learn that mantra. This Sambara, after fooling around with that mantra, now is in hell. So nowadays a lot of people, they like to use mantras. It's very dangerous. Mantras are words of power. I always say in Hokkien, 做降頭還是用照，嘅降頭還是用照，做降頭又係用咒，改降頭又係用咒。Understand? You understand the meaning of 咒? Mantras apparently came from the Devas, and it was learned by the Brahmins. The early Brahmins, they were ascetics, and they cultivated until they had psychic power, so they could communicate with the Devas, and probably from there they learned the mantras. And because the mantras were very powerful, they kept it a secret. They refused to divulge it to other castes. But slowly, because of monetary gains, they slowly it came out, and so other people also practice it. But it's very dangerous. This world, nothing is free. Make use of certain powers, later you have to pay for it. Mantras are not the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha mentioned in one of our suttas that many lifetimes ago, he learned mantras and he taught mantras. And now in this last lifetime, he teaches the way of wisdom. He doesn't teach the way of mantras. It's not so bad, but then some people, maybe their blessings or their merit is not so great. And they chant mantras, some of them, they get sick. I've come across some people, they tell me. So they stop. They stop.
Many teachers who become monks in Buddhism, with Brahmin background, they are the ones who adulterated the teaching.
That is possible, but there is only one way. Another way could be because of all around you have these Hindu gods and all that. And teachings, so it has some influence. Slowly creeps into Buddhism. Like some of the Hindu gods were brought into Buddhism. For example, Kuan Yin was this Avalokiteswara. Avalokiteswara, the last word is Iswara. This Iswara means God. In Pali is Isara. So Kuan Yin was an Indian god. You go to a Hindu temple, you see this goddess with 16 hands. So probably something like that. So when they brought it into Buddhism, it was a male god. So the earliest statues of Kuan Yin in China was a male Kuan Yin. And then they gave him a sex change operation and then became female. So now we have beautiful Kuan Yins. Like this Amitabha Buddha was, according to these Mahayana books that we have seen, was a Persian sun god. So because the sun always sets in the west, so they say Amitabha resides in the west. That's why Amitabha, the characteristic has Wuliang Kwang, Wuliang Shou, limitless light and limitless life. That's the characteristic of the sun. Say again. The Buddha mentioned in the Vinaya books that first the Buddha did not want to start the nun, the bhikkhuni order, and then he was persuaded by Venerable Ananda, and then also because of his foster mother pleading with him to become a nun, so he started. But after that the Buddha said because the nuns order started, that the true Dhamma will last for 500 years. He said, if not, it was supposed to last for 1,000 years. And now it will only last for 500 years. And the reason the Buddha gave was that just like a family, if the family, the house is all men, and then if robbers come, they can fight better with the robbers. But if they have women folk in the house, they have to fight with the robbers, but at the same time they have to worry about their women folk. So also, like if a group of caravans, they were traveling over the mountains and were attacked by bandits, if they are all men, it would be easier to defend themselves. If they have women inside the caravan, they have to fight and worry about the women at the same time. So in the same way, once you have nuns, then the monks, in a way, have to look after the nuns, because the nuns cannot live alone. When the nuns live alone, it was the experience that many of them were assaulted and raped and all that. So the Buddha stopped them from going to the forest alone and all that. They're not like monks. Monks can easily go alone into the forest with less worries. So the nuns have to depend on the monks. So the monks, they want to do their practice, they have to teach the nuns again. And they have to worry about the nuns and all this. So the practice is not so good. That's one reason. Also, another reason is that why the true Dhamma deteriorate. Buddha said that inside the Sangha itself, foolish men arise. And these foolish men, they adulterate the Dhamma by writing new books. So the Buddha warned in the Upama Sangyutta, I think 20.7 later, that the monks will not want to listen to the original Buddha's suttas. Instead, they want to listen to the words of disciples. That means later writings, like the Mahayana Sutras, the Abhidhamma, the commentaries, the Visuddhimagga, Jataka stories, all this. These Jataka stories are so childish, and yet people think, some people accept them to be true. How can animals talk? It's because of the Jataka stories that they create this concept of parami, that the Buddha cultivated paramis over a long period of time. But this word parami was never mentioned by the Buddha in the original discourses. Buddha doesn't even know the word parami, and the Buddha also never heard of the word parami. So, if you look into the stories about the paramis, how the Buddha cultivated the paramis, some of them contradict the Dhamma. For example, the Vesantara Jataka, the story of how the Buddha, to perfect his giving parami, he gave away his wife and 2 children to a heartless beggar whom he knew was going to beat them. And then, in spite of knowing that this heartless beggar is going to torture his children and his wife, he gave away the wife and children. This contradicts the Dhamma. The Buddha says a wise person's charity should not harm yourself, should not harm others. Right? So when he gives away his wife to this beggar, he harms them, he harms himself. So other things like in the Jatakas, I mentioned that a long time ago our Bodhisattva was born as a rabbit, and then he saw this hunter hunting the whole day in the forest, could not shoot any animal. So at night the hunter was boiling the water and he was very hungry and nothing to eat. And this Bodhisattva, this rabbit, in order to perfect his dana, his charity, parami, he jumped into the boiling water, committed suicide for the hunter to eat. This is a very silly story. And then also like this story of the Bodhisattva, a long time ago, he was born as a human being. One day in the forest, from the top of the hill, he saw this tigress was hungry. So because the tigress was so hungry, it had no milk to give its cubs. So the cubs would die. So this Bodhisattva, he jumped from the top of the hills, committed suicide to feed the tigress. This type of story, people are impressed, but it's really silly stories if you really think about it. And it contradicts the Dhamma, the Buddha says, that a good man's or a wise man's charity must not harm himself or harm others. So okay, we'll stop here for tonight.